Let me break that down a little bit more with an example of me doing accrual accounting today. So
Okay.
Beyonce dropped her new drip, okay?
Yes, she did, girl.
Yes,
Are
and
you
I was
beehive?
uh, what I am
Why am
Beyonce's
I asking you that? I know you
biggest
beehive.
fan. Everybody knows if you speak negatively about Beyonce, Giselle knows Carter around me, over with,
Okay.
okay? What up? This is your girl Marla Denise, and you're in for yet another episode of the Inside My Box podcast. Today, I have a guest with me, Miss Kayla Booker. What's going on?
Hey, Marla. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Been working?
The, yes, gratefully during this situation for
Mhm.
sure. Yeah. And to let everybody know, this is my unofficial accountant. I already told her years ago. Whenever I become big, whatever I'm gonna do, I'm gonna hire her as my accountant for sure. But I'm
I'm
excited.
available.
Good, good. Maybe some people listening might need you. Um, what I wanted to get in contact with you and have this conversation with you because we both work in similar fields, but it's different, and a lot of people don't know the differences of what accounting and finance and the things that we do, and also just more talks about finance and money with Black people. I think is important. So first of all, I want to break the ice and say, when did we meet? Did, it was Murrah or
Was it Chastain? Did
you
you
went
do?
to Chastain?
Yes. So I went to Chastain my seventh and eighth grade year. In sixth grade, I was coming from New Hope.
Oh, you in the church, the private schools. Okay.
Yes, yes. And so I went over to Chastain, and for some reason, I feel like I've been knowing you for way longer than Murrah. So it has to be Chastain.
That's crazy. Probably I know a lot of people for years, like my whole life. So
Right.
like I
You
think
know how some people are staples? I feel
yeah.
like you've been a staple for me, and then like I don't know when that was.
That's the beauty of like living in a small town, a small city like that. I know we took
Mhm.
some AP classes. You took AP biology, I think, with me. And I just knew you as this smart girl who was just like whipping through school like crazy. Then you like finished like college early or something like.
I did finish college in 2 years, but I was competing with my daddy because he finished college in 3 years. And at the time, he was the chair of the Department of Accounting at Jackson State. So, he kind of knew the ins and
Oh,
outs of everything. And so I was just like, let's do this.
girl, you better
so,
work.
so that's what it is. I partied plenty. Probably should have had 2 more years of partying, but here we are.
You need to teach me about time management, okay? Because you did that for real.
Somebody had to teach me.
Well, let's get into it. I'm so excited. What made you become an accountant? You already just said that your dad was the head of accounting at Jackson State.
Mm-hmm.
So that your inspiration?
So yes, it was, and that's why I said, he had to teach me how to manage my time. When I was really young, my daddy used to always take me on Saturday mornings and Sunday mornings to Jackson State, back when they were in the old Charles F. Moore building for business.
Mm.
And I would study, study, study. I don't want to say that he forced me to study, but of course, there's nothing that a 12 or 13-year-old wants to do. But he poured the coffee in my cup and was like, "We're going to do this morning." And I had no choice. People always say Kayla was so smart. Well, that's always because I had to do this on Saturday morning and Sunday morning while, everyone else was doing the cartoons. I wish I could have done that too, but it's like I had no choice but to know a lot of things because I had this stretch of 4 hours. And make no mistake, he didn't do that because of me. He did that because he wanted to do it himself. My daddy has always been an early riser, like 4:30 at work before everybody else and in bed really early. And so I guess, you know, he wanted to take me and just kind of train me in that because he saw value in it for himself. But anyway, yes, was the chair for many, many years. And I saw that he had these good trips all the time. Like I remember this one time he went to Paris and I was like, what does my daddy do? You know, and, and you know, he made good money and he was able to always take care of his family. And, you know, in addition, when he wasn't chair, when he was just a professor, assistant, and associate professor, he had all the breaks off that the students had off. Summertime. And I'm like, ooh, that's what I want to do. And because, you know, honestly, I didn't have any aspirations in high school but to do piano.
Oh, okay.
If I was just very honest with you, you know, I was in APAC and everything. And I didn't quite think I was good enough for Juilliard or anything. And I was like, well, you know, I don't even know if I'm good enough to, you know, go around and do piano my own self, even though I did church. I played piano for church for a span of time. And so I was like, so I think I'm going to go with what my daddy does. Okay. And of course, it was a pretty shallow reason to begin with. But I think I grew into what I was doing because even though I didn't have any aspirations, you remember Miss Matt, she used to be the history teacher at Murrah. Miss Matt Sowitz.
Oh, I remember the class, how the class looked. She did cheerleading too, right?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
I remember we had a project and I stood up there and I did my part in the project and she was like, you would make a good teacher. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, you know, I never thought that I would make a good teacher, but having remembered what she said then, and then also deciding, well, let me just do what my father has done. It made sense for me because I didn't have anything else that I had been told that I was really good at besides piano.
But that's the struggle with some smart people, I think, because you are so smart and you could do anything. It's like choosing what you want to do is the main struggle, but having that foundation that he set, I think helped you guide you to the right path. And I think, you know, everything happens for a reason. So it's probably like destined, as you're saying it, to become like you're a professor of accounting, right?
Yes.
Okay. So what exactly you teach what type of accounting? Like general accounting, a specific tax accounting? What do you teach?
Financial accounting. So that's when you first come in, you learn about the debits and credits, and then I've taught cost accounting before. It is not my favorite, but intermediate accounting 1, intermediate accounting 2. I even teach some master's classes, advanced and consolidations and accounting theory, and preparing them for the CPA exam.
Okay. Yeah. So that's your favorite, doing that advanced stuff?
That is my favorite. Look, when I took the CPA exam, I passed the financial portion on my first try, and I was like, "This is what I'm good at."
Go ahead. So you're a CPA then?
I am a CPA.
Oh. Congratulations. That's no easy feat.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, because when I was in grad school and I was taking these courses, my bachelor's degree is in biology, so I didn't know about business, finance, accounting, any of that until I took the prerequisites. And I did pretty well in accounting, but finance was the thing because I like big picture stuff. I like to look at, the microscope, widen the view, looking at the big picture stuff. So I got my concentration in finance. But I liked accounting first, but then I looked at the requirements for the CPA and all the classes. I said, "Oh, we're not prolonging this. I'm graduating when I said I was gonna graduate, and we're gonna be done." So yeah, I'm gonna commend you for that. Like that's a great tool, and then that's a skill set that you can use in other settings. Like you can have clients on the side if you wanted to, and everything. So that's great.
Well, same to you, Marla. Accounting and finance, goes hand in hand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's talk about that actually as you brought that up. Some people think that I can do their taxes, and I have to tell them no, I cannot. Definitely cannot. But you can, and the difference I think for me, how I explain to people, accounting is putting puzzle pieces together, and finance is telling what the picture shows to people.
Mm-hmm.
Would you describe it
Mm-hmm.
that way as well? Or how would you describe
Absolutely.
it? Mm.
Absolutely. Accounting at a certain level, especially when you're talking about undergrad accounting, is making everything come together and balance. So accounting is really good for those people who get some sort of satisfaction from there being an ending, right? And so then we create the financial statement users, because that's also what it is, putting those puzzles together, those pieces of those puzzles together to make the big picture. And the big picture here is the financial statements.
Right.
And so then we can hand it over to the finance people and say, here, analyze this and that, stock prices, on and on. Yeah.
So great, you put that together well. Thank you. So let's talk about, not a lot of people like us in this field. I'm always the only one in the company, period, as a Black woman out here in LA. Normally, period. But this company I work for currently is about maybe 10 of us, maybe a little bit more out of like almost 200. So that's the most diverse I've been in. But as far as finance and accounting goes, and what I do, the disclaimer to people, what I do is not tax accounting. I do corporate accounting. So I do a lot of budget tracking. I make sure that things are allocated in the right accounts. What she was saying about puzzle pieces, I do a lot of detail-oriented stuff on a daily basis to make sure things come out together. But yeah, working as a Black woman in accounting, especially in a field that deals with money, is stressful sometimes, because you not only want to gain the trust of who you work with and work for, you also want to gain credibility of you knowing what you're doing, because you can't really make too many mistakes, if any, when dealing with money. So if you want to speak a little bit on your experience as being a Black woman in accounting.
Well, I commend you for doing that, because you were fearless. You go out there and you say, I can put myself in front of people, handle their money, handle, the tallies for their money, and they can trust me. Whereas I did not take the corporate route at all. Like, I knew that I just wanted to be a teacher. So when you do that, the route is a bit different. I started out with the bachelor's degree, went to the master's degree, got my CPA, and then went for my PhD, which, qualifies you to teach and everything.
Wait a minute, so we're talking to Dr. Kayla Booker. Oh, my bad, girl. I got to put respect on the name. My bad.
Look, I do emphasize that in my job environment, but everybody else, y'all could just call me Kayla, Miss Booker. I'm not really too big on that, but the students should know.
No, the students and the listeners right now should know we're talking to Dr. Kayla Booker. Okay, go ahead though. Finish what you were saying.
Oh, girl, tell me the question again.
About being Black in accounting,
okay.
And your experience.
So it is a bit different when you take that route. And as opposed to having an internship or anything, I always knew that I wanted to do education. And I had the privilege of doing my education, all of my degrees at Jackson State University, where, it is nothing but Black people around. So I had been in that environment for my entire life. Being from Jackson, going to New Hope, which, is this prestigious Black private school, going to Chastain, going to Murrah. So my story is a little bit reversed. I had been around Black people my entire life.
Same.
And people don't think about that, because when I had my first position, even with my first TA job at Jackson State, I'm teaching Black students for 4 semesters straight. So when I get ready to go out into the world, I taught, my first job was at Roosevelt University in Chicago, Illinois.
Oh, nice.
And it kind of eased me out there because Chicago is a very urban area, right?
Oh,
And so
yeah.
you're going to run across people from all backgrounds, all kind of diversity out there. And so I never felt like, ooh, I've stepped into something I can't handle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I still saw a lot of what I was familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
It's when I made it back down to Rhodes in Memphis, Tennessee, that I'm like, that I kind of got that, oh,
Imposter syndrome a little bit.
yes,
I
absolutely.
deal with that so much. Go ahead though. I'll say it. Go ahead though.
Absolutely. You know, these are people not because of their color or anything, but, you know, because they have had that background where, you know, they have this money running through the
Mm-hmm.
family, and then they slowly start to get a leg up and be successful. And now, you know, they have their hands in all kinds of businesses and, you know, are able to provide for their children and have studied in New York and abroad. And I feel
Mm-hmm.
like, am I qualified? You know, am I
Mm-hmm.
qualified to be teaching the students the little bit of what I know? And I think that you have to reach a point as a Black woman where you say, hey, they wouldn't have hired me or been entertaining me if I was not qualified. I had to, for instance, pass the CPA exam, which is a national exam, which has no color on it,
Mm-hmm.
just like any other person. I am qualified. It's just that this is what I knew I wanted to do. And it's a little bit out of the ordinary because you don't get people getting their PhDs until after they finish their career. When
Oh.
they're 50 or 55 and they say, I'm tired of corporate America, let me go have a little bit more stability.
Oh, okay.
So I have approached everything. It's like from the opposite angle. Now, I was having a panel the other day at Rhodes with Women of Determination, which is a group of women of color who have gotten together and, you know, sharing their experiences and are determined to make it through their college experience at Rhodes.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked about this the other day. You just have to know that you're good enough.
Yeah. I you this is so good because I literally today was in my head about how to be more confident in meetings. So luckily at the job that I'm in, at the job that I'm in, my like supervisor is the director of accounting for the company, and she trusts me with tasks. Like, so she's building me up, and then she's bringing me into these budget meetings, and they're saying stuff that I've never heard before, terminology, and I'm like in my head, low key, like, should I be in this meeting right now? Should I even like, do I know what I need? Like, am I doing enough? It's always going through my head. Am I doing enough? But I have to, like you said, come to this conclusion in my head saying, she wouldn't invite me to the meeting if I wasn't enough. If I hadn't shown her that I could be able to handle what she's giving me. And there's no evidence. It's really a false fear. And like you, I grew up in Jackson, Mississippi, all Black, everything. I had never felt like a minority until I went to grad school. Never.
Absolutely.
And so
Absolutely.
I'm still adjusting to that. Like, I don't know this minority lifestyle. It's only been like
Right.
what, 8 years since I've been out of this bubble of Black. And so dealing with that is all adjustment within itself, and then also just finding community out here and being comfortable at work, and are all things where I'm kind of like, either I'm gonna move back to like Atlanta and so I can feel a little comfortable. I've been thinking about that. Or
Really?
yeah, I have, because it's like Atlanta, first of all, is number one tied with DC for economies for Black people. Forbes, I think, wrote the article where they were in top two cities for Black people thriving economically. And so I
Right.
was like, okay, they're doing well down there. And plus, I'll feel a little more comfortable because that's what I'm used to. Or should I take on this task of being uncomfortable, being in this element, until I've actually reached a point where I can't grow anymore. So I've been struggling with that too, being a Black person in corporate America. I think is tough, because sometimes also you think, am I hired just for this position? Do they value me
Mhm.
enough to raise my, not only just give me more tasks, but raise my responsibility and my status in the company? And that's something I think about as well.
Well, I'm not going to say that's an impossibility for each one of us. And I know that's a sobering fact sometimes. However, when you get in that position, I think that it's our responsibility to help in the ways that we can. Of course, my dream job was always like an HBCU, this and that, because that's what I was familiar with. And I struggled in the beginning at Rhodes because I'm like, do I really belong here? Could I help better somewhere else? But I got my grasp on things that I could help with. Like, for instance, NABA, I'm over the National Association of Black Accountants as far as the faculty advisor. Wow. For in Memphis, just a faculty advisor for the 4 campuses, major campuses in Memphis. And that's something I was involved with as an undergrad, and I felt like I could help there. There are students who need to see my Black face in the Department of Business. Those few students, and I think that sometimes we tend to ignore those Black students who also feel uncomfortable, just like we do, just because they are at a PWI or some other institution where they're greatly outnumbered. And so we tend to think, oh, they're okay, they chose this. And that's not necessarily the truth. They struggle. A lot of them struggle with the same things that we do. Imposter syndrome. Should I even be here? Oh my goodness, I felt this microaggression in class today. What do I do? And they need to see my face as a comfort, to just be able to come sit down and say, hey, you're getting through this experience some kind of way. I feel comfortable with coming to you. And I have accepted that that's the way that I help. That's the way that I make my impact with the Black students that are at Rhodes. Now, I do feel like my impact is wider than that, because, as long as you don't have any pre-existing bias in your head, I've met many students who I sat down with and they cried with me, of all colors, because of their struggles. And so, my tentacles reach out further than I think. And I believe that if you examine your situation, somebody's looking at you like, dang, Marla is really doing the thing there with budgeting, and she's offering her opinion in these meetings, and it's good for me to see. Right?
Man, that's so great. And it brings full circle what you said earlier about your intention in going into accounting, maybe being your father's influence, but you found your true purpose within what you do, which is important. I think when we're going through this journey to find purpose that keeps us going and keeps us motivated, and seeing you, I would have loved to see you personally if I was a student. I would have been like, oh yes, we could do it. Like, she got her doctorate, what? Let's go, And building that confidence, I think, is very important, especially in business where we don't dominate as much as we need to. And I think entrepreneurship is something that I screamed to the top of my lungs, because it is building our own economies. I think is going to be the key in building Black people up in America, period.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. My friends who have become entrepreneurs, I am so proud of them. I'm too scared to do anything like it right now, but I am so proud of them. And hopefully one day that I can do an accounting firm my own to help them out. Because I think that's something else that we need: more Black accounting firms, more prominent Black accounting firms.
I'm telling you, so I have my own company. If I have somebody who needs an accountant, I am going to suggest them to you, for real, like seriously.
Okay, you gonna force me into this entrepreneurship thing?
Just a little part-time gig, use that CPA on the side,
Well, you never know in these days.
Well, let's as we talk about Black economies and building up the Black communities in America, the importance of the Black dollar. You wanted to bring up a few topics that might help Black people as far as money management, mixing your expertise with accounting and how they can manage their money a little bit better. When we talked, you brought up three topics, and the first would be accrual basis accounting. You want to talk a bit a little about that?
Accrual basis accounting. So I have my notes here because I really have to connect this for people who are not familiar with accounting at all, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we tend to be pretty out of sight, out of mind, and in general when it comes to bills as Black people. So, but what accrual accounting does is tells you that you need to recognize your expenses when they are incurred, not necessarily when the cash needs to be spent for them. So this is where we run into trouble. We tend to ignore all of our expenses until they are right up on us and we must pay them, such as that big insurance payment that might hit once a year, $1,200 all in August, and you ignore that. So, but like they say, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. And so prepare ahead of time. It's not going to go away just because you wish it away or you ignore it away for the entire year. So if you properly save up, it won't be a surprise. It's not a person that I know that wouldn't like to have a good credit score. But every time you ignore that big bill, here you go again, debt collection agency calling you out of nowhere. And those kind of things rack up. I believe that if we did not ignore what we had to do more, then we can avoid things like that, and we can avoid running down our credit score. And that's how I think accounting would help. Accrual accounting, counting expenses when they are incurred, when you know you have to pay them, not necessarily when you're about to spend the cash for them.
Let me break that down a little bit more with an example of me doing accrual accounting today. So Beyonce dropped her new drip, okay?
Yes, she did,
yes.
girl.
And I was, what? I am Beyonce's.
Why am I asking you that? I know you be
biggest fan. Everybody knows if you speak negatively about Beyonce, Giselle Knowles Carter around me, over with, okay? But no, so she dropped her new Adidas collaboration this morning, and I was just in bed looking at it before, I got up for work, and I was like, oh, I want this, I want this, I want this. But using a tactic that you said, accrual accounting, which is making sure you account for things that are coming. So rent is due on the 1st.
Rent due?
It's utilities are becoming due. I have my car insurance, which is not cheap, becoming due next week. So what I did was like, okay, I got paid today. You minus rent, you minus utilities, you minus groceries, you minus, insurance, you minus that and that. What will I have left over before that next paycheck? I was like, let me wait on that drip.
Sobering. It is so sobering, Marla, and I totally get you. I made it to the point where I listed out every single thing, including like Hulu, Netflix, right? Those things that are easily forgotten. And I'm like, I'm not living beyond my means, but every single thing that I have is going to all of these things that I like, but don't necessarily need to have. Yeah. And you could cut out so many expenses that way. Even when you do get to the point where you sit down and say, hey, I'm going to list out all these expenses that are coming due, you might surprise yourself.
Right. Like so we work in with money, so we are used to seeing it. I don't think a lot of people check their balances or their accounts on a regular basis. I check mine daily. I don't know if that's too much.
No.
Okay.
That's so good. That is so good. Because listen, I don't. Accounting doesn't mean I know best what to do with my money. I know what I should be doing, but I do not check that account every day until I think it might be getting a little low. Let me check.
But using your tactic of accrual accounting keeps you in mind of what's coming, so you know. Because I had the money in my account because I got paid
Right.
today to get the drip, but because I knew those expenses were coming, I was like, let's ease off. Beyonce just gonna have to wait. You know, I'm not balling enough to just drop, money at the drop of the dime right now without thinking of the expenses to come. And thankfully, I've like, knock on wood, I've never been late on a payment. Knock on wood, because I always think ahead of time.
Exactly. And that's
Mhm.
what we need. And I'm no expert on credit score, but
Yeah.
what you just said, paying on time is a high impact item according to Credit Karma. I love credit. Somebody had to turn me on to Credit Karma because before I was just like, I don't need that. And now that is something that I do check a lot.
My bank account actually tells me my credit score is not moving right now because those student loans are still there. Okay, because debt and income ratio counts towards your credit score as well. So as long as I have that big debt on my account, it's not going to move too much unless I decrease on my debt. Which another thing, I actually paid a little bit on my car instead of getting that drip. So
So responsible.
I'm trying.
Look, girl, I had to put down Fashion Nova today.
I need some more t-shirts.
No more clothes.
So is there anything else you wanted to say about accrual basis accounting as far as how to use it?
That's pretty much it. Account for your expenses when they are incurred, not when you are getting ready to spend the cash for them.
Yeah. Good stuff. So the second topic you wanted to bring up, I think, was assets used up becomes expenses. Now, what does that mean? If you use up an asset, it becomes an expense.
So we've been talking a lot about expenses, right? That's what an expense is, an asset that has been used up. And so people use up assets, and that doesn't necessarily involve the spending of any cash. For instance, you're using up your car every day, right? But you don't see like little trails of the car falling behind you, right?
Yeah.
You are the cash being blown out the tailpipe, but you are using up your car. And I say this because it's near and dear to my heart. You know, when people have the conversation about, do we fly out of Jackson versus do we fly out of New Orleans? I'm so glad I'm able to talk about this right now, because today I just did a little bit of Googling, and I have some figures here.
Okay.
Most people see there's $150 difference between the flight prices, right? But then they don't count for other things that you would need to spend to get down there, right? You think that, hey, I have a car already, it's fine, I can just go down there. But what about gas?
Yeah.
What about the oil change that you might want to get before you go down there? I know my mother, for instance, she loves to like realize that tomorrow we're having a trip, so tonight she's getting an oil change and a wheel alignment or something like that. When you get down there, what about the parking? And so, for instance, I entered in today, New Orleans to Vegas. Everybody likes to go to Vegas, and then Jackson to Vegas. Now, New Orleans to Vegas, I found out was $287.
Okay.
Early in December. I did it for the cheapest days, like Thursday, going on Thursday, coming back on Monday. And then Jackson to Vegas, let me see, was a lot higher. What was it? It was $431.
Wow.
$431 under all the same parameters.
Wow.
And so, yeah, that's a difference of $144, right? So I can understand why you would want to go down there. But then you have to think, when you get down to New Orleans, unless you know somebody, you're going to have to pay for 4 days of parking. I looked that up too. According to the official website, and this might be a little bit different during these times, but it's $12 for 24 hours to park at New Orleans. And so you multiply that times the four days, or depending on when you make it back on the fifth day, it's at least $48 to park down there. Whereas with Jackson, if this is your hometown, you know somebody to drop you off the airport and pick you up, right? So you can avoid that cost. So you've already racked up 48 of that $144 difference, right? And then another thing, gas to and from New Orleans, let's just call it $40 to and from New Orleans. Okay, so now we're up to 84 out of that $144 difference. Now, again, that's not counting for wear and tear on the car, or maybe a possible maintenance item that you might need to get before you go down there.
Or something that might happen.
Exactly. The food that you might want to eat as you're on the road or something like that. So my point is, now we've whittled that 144. We figured out 84 out of that 144. So now we only have a $60 difference. Now, is that worth it to you to get up much earlier, drive down there?
3 hours drive. Yeah.
Come back, you know, when you make it back from your trip, most times when we make it back from our trips, we are tired. We don't want to do anything, but now you got to get off the plane and drive back for 3 hours. It's not like riding on the plane where you just do nothing, right? So I'm not saying that it's worth it or it's not worth it. What I am saying is that we as Black people have to do a little bit more analysis. We can't just jump the gun. And there's nobody, or very few people that I've ever seen make this type of analysis. We have those invisible costs, those invisible expenses that we don't see.
I think I use that same tactic with my time. Actually, how do I want to spend my time? Because a lot of people say, you know, even with my podcast, with things I do online, I should be more active on there. I should spend more time being an influencer. And although I want my messages, these interviews, which I know are going to help a lot of people, I want it to be reach a lot of people and reach as many people as possible. I analyze the time spent becoming an influencer and the time spent that I could be doing to becoming an expert in my craft. So I'm like, I'd rather study and know more. So when I do come online, and I'm talking from like an expert level place. So it's like I'm analyzing what's the risk and what's the return of what I'm doing. And to your point with money, analyzing what's worth it and what's not is very important. I think, like you said, a lot of people, not even just Black people, a lot of people just like, oh, I got the money, let me go ahead, and it's gonna be cheaper if I drive 3 hours. But is it even worth it though? Because you wear and tear your car, you wear and tear your body, you're tired, which puts you at risk of, accident. Hopefully not, but you're tired. And so assets becomes expenses. That's really an interesting perspective. I haven't thought about it like that, but yeah.
And all your assets, right? And everything, and being in this field, not all expenses are cash, right? Sometimes your expenses are your quality of life, your time. And we all know that, or we probably have had the discussion before, that we don't put human capital, like our workers, if we're a corporation, we don't put that down as an asset on our books.
Right.
But it is an asset, right? These are bodies working for us, dedicating their time to work for us. And I think that we need to also factor in, like you were saying, your time, quality of life. Do I feel like doing this? If I'm already stressed out, well, why would I get up and drive down? Now, for a family of 5,
maybe
saving $60 each. Yeah, that right? That's $300. So, I mean, totally. But my point is, we need to do more careful analysis, because that's going to save us a lot of money in the future.
Yeah. Great point. I love it. I haven't even thought of it like that. So thank you for that. And then the third point, I think I had to look this word up. I'm going to tell the public. Conservatism, which when I googled it, it said having traditional ideas and not being able to get away from those traditional ideas. Is that what you're talking about?
So, as conservatism for accounting is a slightly different from just conservatism as we know it every day. This point ties into my first point, whereas I was saying in my first point, there are some expenses that we don't account for, period.
Mm-hmm.
In this point, there are some expenses that we know we have that we're willing to account for, but we just kind of tend to go too low. Oh, that ain't gonna cost me too much, like $50 or something like that. When in reality, it turns out to being 80 or 90.
Mm-hmm.
So what conservatism is in accounting, basically recognizing bad news before good news. And so if you recognize that, hey, I have this expense, I might not know exactly what it's going to be, but instead of estimating $60 for it, let me estimate 90 or let me estimate 100 more realistically. Now, if you know it's going to be somewhere around 60, by no means do that at all. But if you have no clue and it's a bigger range, estimate on that higher end. And so it's always better to make it there and just kind of save the money. It's money you didn't think that you were going to have anyway.
Right.
And so, and I say this also to recognize that bad news, because you know what? The moment we were told we were getting stimulus checks, we all banked on that stimulus check, right? We all went ahead and said, hey,
Like,
there's
I
money
already know.
for me. So we recognized that good news. But we didn't want to recognize the bad news. And what conservatism is, it tells you to flip that around. Recognize the bad news, but don't bank on that good news. So when you receive that check, that should have been just a surprise to you, a pleasant surprise.
Mm-hmm. I like that because it ties into what I do with budgeting for my job too. We try to budget to the higher end. We want to budget out so to make it seem like we're going to spend way more than what we might actually spend. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to be one-on-one when it comes to budgeting. You don't want to be penny for penny when it comes to that, because something might come up and then you're over. So,
Exactly.
Accounting for, those surprises that might come, and it helps to allocate funds a little bit more. So say if I have an expense coming up that's $200, I might calculate, oh, it's $250. Just to say, oh, I really don't have as much as I think I have to put in my head to spend less. It's kind of like tricking you to spend less.
Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what we do in accounting. I know that when we have lawsuits and things like that for companies always are going to have a probability range, probability that we can pay this on the higher end. There's this percentage probability that we can pay this on the lower end. And then you have to take that potential loss once it makes it past a certain point of, yeah, it's more likely than not that I'm going to have to spend this. And they have to put it on the balance sheet. Oh, excuse me, not the balance sheet, on the income statement as a potential loss or something like that.
Okay. Well, I don't think our listeners know what a balance sheet and an income statement are. Do you want to define like a quick definition of what they are?
What these are is just information, a summary of all transactions that a company had throughout the year, right? So we know that the company earned some money, revenues, spent some money, expenses equals their net income. That's what is on the income statement for a period of time. The balance sheet takes that information that's on the income statement and rolls it over to the balance sheet through the form of retained earnings. So this is all net income minus all dividends that a company has had ever since they've been in existence. It also has all the things that the company owns on it, assets, all the things that a company owes on it, liabilities.
Good.
So this is just the information, like the summary of all accounting information for a company on one page.
Yeah. So, and then just to reiterate what you said, that what we do as accountants, probably more so you than I, but what we do as accountants is make sure when we put stuff in the system, they go into the right account. So they show up correctly on these financial statements that you just named, like the income statement, the balance
Yeah.
sheet, and everything balances out because we put it into the right accounts and coded everything correctly. Um, I don't want to get too deep into the accounting world because we might lose some people.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I want to, go over those three again just to solidify your points to people. So number one, accrual basis accounting. And if I can explain it back to you, let's see. Accrual basis accounting is making sure you account for expenses that are coming due but not actually hit the account yet. So
Right. Not having spent the cash for them just yet.
okay, so making sure, like me in the drip this morning, Beyonce dropped that new drip. I said, let me
Mm-hmm.
stop the drip. Let me turn that faucet off because I ain't gonna be able to get the drips. Let me
Well,
stop the
a
drip.
few months ago, I don't know how early you knew about it, but even if you wanted to make that an expense of yours, or anybody, they should have accounted for it up front, right? You're gonna have that expense. Let me go ahead and incur that expense, no matter how somebody might view it from the outside. This is important to me to have. And I
Right.
totally understand because I'm a purse buff. I love it, right? So we all have that thing that we know we're gonna spend. People think we shouldn't spend, but that's fine. If you're gonna spend it, go ahead and account for it.
And I said this earlier, Beyonce is a financial coach. She's a consultant, she's a coach. She encouraged you to save your money because she
She
tells you
does.
a week before. And if you're not gonna get it. So
She
you
was
gotta
talking about
stay
in her
with it.
music. But they drop gems in their music all the time, and people really ought to listen closely.
Oh, okay. So I need to listen to these lyrics a little bit better and save a little Beyonce fun on the side. But
Yes, Jay-Z and Beyonce always, always, and maybe this is the accountant in me. They always are mentioning these little gems in their
oh,
music, especially the one that they did together. What's the joint album?
everything is
Uh,
love.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
that has a lot of them in it.
Yeah, it encouraged me to buy some artwork. I just bought some artwork and like I was like, oh, I feel grown.
Yes,
But yeah.
grown investments. I hadn't made it there yet, Marla.
Yeah. I mean, I'm doing what I can. So a thing that I talk about a little bit too, as far as managing money, doing what you can now. So when you get the money that you really want to get, you already are accustomed to doing it. So what I do is like do a little bit towards debt, do a little bit towards investing. So when I get to the point where I have a lot of money to put towards investing, I already know what to look for and have those habits in place. So I'm not balling at right now, not yet, but I'm putting the tools together.
I feel you.
Habits known. But to go back to your points, accrual basis accounting, make sure you account for expenses that are coming due that have not hit your account just yet, but make sure you keep those in mind before spending money. Number two, assets used up become expenses, and that means to account for analyzing or not analyzing, analyzing more what's worth it and what's not. So maybe you want to take a trip and you want to drive somewhere first before you take the trip. Is the drive worth it? Let's think about all the expenses involved with the cost of doing that. And I also link that up to like time management. What is worth my time and what's not? So you have to analyze the outcomes of your actions before you do it. So did I explain that?
Right.
Okay. Okay. All
So
right.
think about the use of all your assets, even those ones that you're not obviously, we don't count for the use of our car and driving somewhere, but that should be a cost, something you think about in
Mhm.
doing this. So all your assets, including, your time, the quality of your life, that should be an asset to you. So think about that as well.
Okay.
All your assets that become used up become expenses. Do you want them to become an expense?
See, you're a good teacher. Okay. And then number three, conservatism. Being more conservative with your money by way of accounting for more expenses than you might actually occur or incur. So
Right.
say when you're doing the accrual basis accounting, you're thinking, oh, I have rent coming up, I have this, and that. Do a little bit more to that expense than you might have. So if you have a $200 expense coming up, say you have a $250 expense and you have 500 in your account. Just say you have a $250 expense, and that means you have $250 left over right now. So I'm using conservatism in a way where I'm upping the expense that's coming so I can be more, I have more cushion and be more prepared when that expense comes. And I'm also using your first tactic as accrual basis accounting where I'm thinking of the expense before I spend the money that's in my account right now. Did I explain that?
Exactly. Exactly. Recognize the bad news, and the bad news for us a lot of times is it's having to spend or a bill or something like that more quickly than you would the good news, like your stimulus check,
Right.
your refund check from your taxes, things like that. So slow down on the recognition of that. Don't bank on that, but you know that you got to spend this money on this rent.
Right. That's not
Count
going
on that.
Right. That's guaranteed.
Exactly. Yes.
Anything else you want to share with the public? Anything we left out maybe, or anything else?
No, not as far as that, but you want me to give my handles and stuff
Oh
at this time?
yeah. First of all, I want to thank you first of all for teaching us and spending your time with us. I know you're a busy woman and it's late where you are. Scheduling, different time zones can be tricky. So thank you so much for spending your time with me and sharing your knowledge. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me, Marla, and trusting me with this interview.
Of course, like Dr. Kayla Booker, of course. I took classes with you. Of course.
Well, thank you.
Let
That's because my daddy was dragging me. I had to know something, right? I couldn't do anything for 4 hours on Saturday morning and Sunday morning. So.
He set that foundation well, though. Shout out to Daddy Booker.
True.
Go ahead and let the people know how they can find you and keep in contact with you.
All right. So, if you have anything on the business side or any communications with me, you can hit me up at my Rhodes email. That's going to be Booker K, BOOKERK at Rhodes.edu. That's RHODES.edu. And so that's on the professional side. But what a lot of people don't know about me is I'm a bit of a fashion and beauty guru. I like to think of that myself as that. So if you want to see some crazy makeup looks and hair and things like that, you can go to @KD So Sassy on Instagram and find me and just scroll through there. I don't have many followers, but I really do like to do the artistic stuff as well. And the getaway.
You said it's a getaway.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I use. Thank you. We are on the same page. That's what I use this podcast not only as an educational tool, but it's so creative and a getaway from the very analytical work that we do that it sharpens me at work because I am doing something opposite in my free time. And it's kind of like, it's just fun, having fun and doing things that you like to do and not having to like monetize and be business oriented with it. But I like, to your point, I've seen those makeup tutorials. She puts it on. She beats her face, y'all.
I've tried. Look, and this is how you know that I am in a not so busy season because we're going to have the Christmas break coming up. Oh, guaranteed I'm about to be in front of the mirror again.
Okay. All right. And you see the curls popping, all that hair. I can't. Baby. Inspiration all over. Thank you again.
Girl, your curls are beautiful. I've seen them in real life. Beautiful.
Well, thank you. Again, I appreciate your time. I thank you. Until we meet again, you can follow me on NSIDE_NY_BOX on Twitter and Instagram. Till we meet again, remember to love yourself, define yourself, and think for yourself. Peace.
I like that.